Hi, thanks for coming today. I'm a Marine veteran, and I hate to have to say this, but I would not want my son or daughter to serve in today's military. I say that even though one of my grandmothers served in World War II, both of my grandfathers served in World War II, my father served in Vietnam. I did 3 deployments in Iraq. Just one example of why I feel this way. Right now, General C.Q. Brown has been nominated to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Aside from serious command and readiness failures, General Brown has openly advocated for systemic racism and sexism in promotions. That's a clear violation of the 14th Amendment. What would happen if any other senior officer tried to predicate promotions to preference white males? They'd be court-martialed. This man is being promoted. Why are we funding that? Over a third of the senior military officers that are currently being held have espoused similar views. We have a weaponization of the DOJ and the FBI. Political opponents are being targeted, and Americans with different opinions are treated differently than those with regime-friendly viewpoints, showing very real constitutional due process concerns once again. And I fully support impeachment, but impeachment is not a replacement for accountability through government funding and the power of the purse. We find ourselves hearing from those on the left right now, the very same people who recently shut down American communities for well over a year, who destroyed tens of millions of families, small businesses, schools, and churches, that they will block government funding if it happens to fix many of these problems. That's problematic. Republicans should challenge them to do so by putting forward a CR that legitimately addresses these concerns, including border security, COVID tyranny, and the national debt. Finally, I applaud all of those conservatives standing here who are signaling that enough is enough, that it is finally time for Republicans to take a stand to protect Americans. And with that, I'll turn it over to Representative Clyde.
Thank you, Wade. Back in January, we fought to fundamentally alter the way this institution works. We fought to restore the people's house. And while we were successful in delivering transformational change, our fight doesn't end there. In the early summer months, we fought against the Biden-McCarthy Fiscal Irresponsibility Act because this spendthrift deal was disastrous for our nation's financial future. Now we're faced with the battle of funding the government. And just as before, we're not interested in giving up when the going gets tough. We're not interested in allowing Washington to revert back to serving the swamp instead of serving the American people. And we certainly aren't interested in rubber stamping the big government socialist agenda of Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi, or their out-of-control spending levels and woke policies from the last Congress. The country gave House Republicans the majority to change the course of Congress. Greenlighting a so-called clean or unqualified or blind CR is completely out of the question. It would endanger the Republican majority and endanger Speaker McCarthy's leadership. We will not kick the can of addressing excessive government spending down the road again in order to buy the uniparty more time to produce yet another horrendous backroom deal. Such a decision would not only lead us to fail in delivering on our promises, but would ultimately fail the American people who sent us here to fix this broken system. As a new and conservative appropriator, my top priority remains passing each of the 12 appropriation bills in a conservative and fiscally responsible manner, meaning true FY22 top-level spending, just as we vowed to do. If our Republican colleagues share this goal, then it's past time that we put in the work to achieve it. Now, in terms of a short-term solution, I will oppose any CR that fails to include the qualifications that my House Freedom Caucus colleagues and I have outlined. That means the significantly increased border security of H.R. 2. After all, we all voted for it. Eliminating the weaponization of the Department of Justice and ending the woke policies that continue to undermine our military's combat readiness. Furthermore, I will also oppose any additional blank check for Ukraine. We simply cannot continue funding wasteful, reckless, and woke policies that are destroying our great nation. Capitulating to the swamp is not an option. It's time to fight and win for real change on behalf of the American people.
I want to thank you all for being here, and thank you to my colleagues. You know, the American people are sick and tired of funding the priorities of Washington elites. The American people are sick and tired of a woke and weaponized Justice Department. And the American people are sick and tired of a border that is so porous that we have hundreds of thousands of people coming across monthly. We have 85,000 children that are unaccounted for. I was just in Tucson, and I went south to the border. You have miles and miles of fence. And roughly every quarter of a mile, our government has cut holes in the fence. The so-called deer crossing, there was no deer tracks. I'm a country boy from Tennessee. There was footprints, there was carpet shoes used by the cartel, and there was paraphernalia. I found birth control of a woman who couldn't afford to pay her fare, so she had to work it off on her journey. These feckless policies of this inept, corrupt administration, we will not fund. It is time that we draw a line in the sand and say, hell no. This economy is like the Titanic. It's on a course. There's a collision ahead, and if we don't correct course, the outcome will be catastrophic.
The House of Representatives has already passed the solution to the border crisis, H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act, but it's languishing in the Senate. The only leverage the House now has to move H.R. 2 across the finish line is the constitutional power of the purse. Congress cannot continue to fund this administration's efforts to escort as many illegal aliens into the United States as possible under the guise of either illegal parole or catch and release. To do so would make Congress complicit in the open border policies of this administration. The House must attach H.R. 2 in its entirety to the spending bill and pass that. No security, no funding.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy Roth. I'm president of the State Freedom Caucus Network. My job is to help state lawmakers create state freedom caucuses all across the country. No security, no funding is the only sane and responsible path forward in a country where we are $32 trillion in debt. Hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens are crossing the border unimpeded, and our justice system is weaponized against the Biden regime's political opponents. Pretending that these are not existential problems and trying to paper over these issues with increased earmarked spending and yet another blank check for Ukraine is actually insane. To the House Freedom Caucus members behind me, all of our State Freedom Caucus members are foursquare behind you. We have 135 state lawmakers in 11 states representing millions and millions of hardworking Americans. In Arizona, Illinois, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Idaho, Georgia, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Louisiana, and Mississippi, our members are standing and cheering for you, letting their constituents know who the real fighters are in D.C. and who is standing in the way. We all know you'll stay strong and committed, and we thank you for it. We're growing the team of your supporters. Let's go.
I have a gentleman coming to speak behind me. Pay close attention because he uses words with many syllables. Tom Fitton, step forward, please, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll see you later.
I'm Tom Fitton. I'm president of Judicial Watch, America's leading government watchdog organization. We have a simple request for Congress: do your job. It's not enough to do investigations and reports. We need to stop the government corruption and abuse that is so concerning to the American people. In this new budget fight, or basically the old budget fight that we're being asked to pretend is new, there's an inflection point. Are we going to continue to fund Republicans in the House the wild abuse by the Biden administration of its political opponents, the mass censorship of tens of millions of Americans, the border invasion we've heard so much about, and the other wild abuses of power that are right now fully funded with Congress? And I don't know what we're talking about with a clean CR. I see a dirty CR, a CR that will fund the worst of dirty politics and corruption in our federal government. And there's a positive moral obligation right now, not next year, but right now, to stop the abuses, the effort to jail Trump on pretextual, unprecedented charges in a way never seen before in American history. An obligation to stop right now the Biden administration's censorship of tens of millions of Americans. The obligation to stop right now the illicit use of tax monies to fund abortions in our military and elsewhere. We need to stop right now the attack on children through the promotion of transgender extremism. We need to stop right now the lack of serious investigation into the Biden administration corruption, specifically Biden corruption. We need a Justice Department or a special counsel that has confidence of the American people. All of these issues can be addressed in this continuing resolution, and if they don't want to address it, that suggests to me those who vote for it are on the side of corruption, and those who oppose it are on the side of justice. Thank you very much.
Can I just ask, what actual evidence do you have as opposed to allegations to show to the American public that would merit an actual impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden and prove that today isn't just about some of you...
Oh, I don't know.
...bullied Speaker McCarthy for the sake of enacting political revenge.
This isn't about political revenge. We have the bank accounts. We can see, ma'am, you can see that the homes that the Bidens own can't be afforded on a congressional or Senate salary. You also understand that it's not normal for family members to receive millions of dollars from overseas interests. Those things aren't normal. That's not normal to have 20 shell companies. These things are not normal, and it alludes to not only just widespread corruption, but money laundering, if not influence peddling itself. And we also have the president, the vice president at the time, on record saying that the prosecutor was fired. Well, son of a bitch, the prosecutor was fired, right? Because the prosecutor was going after the company that his son was working on. That's what we have. If you can't see that, if you are that blunt, look, I'll turn it over to the attorneys.
People can't see that. They think it's political revenge.
It's because you don't report on it.
We're here reporting on it today.
I'm not sure how you know what the American people think, but here's what they might wonder. Actually, if you're a federal prosecutor, you would be asking yourself, how can there not have been an indictment for a FARA violation against Hunter Biden? How can there possibly, my understanding and discussions with staff have confirmed my impulse that this would be very much the basis of a Foreign Corrupt Practices Act investigation, given the circumstances that we know. The question is, it's funny, after we come out of the events that John Durham, for example, testified to our committees about how investigations proceeded through our investigative agencies without proper predication. It's not that you have to prove the case. It's not that, you understand, to this point, there's not been a single subpoena to a Hunter Biden bank account or a Joe Biden bank account or any other Biden family member's bank account, because until an impeachment inquiry commences, that's not a jurisdictional possibility. Well, it would be stretching jurisdiction to do that. But there's ample predication at this point in time based on that very unusual set of circumstances, which is for no apparent payment for expertise or services rendered. Biden family members writ large received over $20 million.
That we know of.
That we know of.
It is very simple for someone just to insist there's an absence of evidence. But if you can look in the face of that and contend that, that's, anyone has a right to their opinion. What they can't do is change the facts.
And I invite you to go to the website clyde.house.gov/Biden crime family, and you will see all the evidence from the Oversight Committee. You will see all the evidence. And if you're willing to read it, I think you'll be convinced. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So what point are you going to be vacating Kevin McCarthy since he's doing absolutely nothing?